I was ill. I was a little bit ill prepared this morning, had a little bit of late start, but we're here now. Okay. All right. So chapter six, theory, we went ahead and covered configuring basic switch management, right? And we covered some of the bullet points from the Cisco CCNA 20-301 objectives PDF, right? Um, if you guys read chapter six, great. If you guys decided to skip it, that's great as well. If you feel like it's a topic that you've already have done pat, perfectly fine as well, right? Um, Today we're just going to go ahead and be reviewing. Um, we're going to be reviewing that chapter with some practical labs, um, and we're going to go ahead and go from there. So I'm going to tackle this um, as logical as possible following the chapter. Please, if it's not questions regarding the lab, if it's off topic, please save it for the Discord chat, save it for a private chat. Um, but if it's legit questions that are pertaining to the lab, feel free to ask them. If you do ask questions that are not pertaining to it, I'm gonna, kindly divert you to, ask the Discord chat. Okay. I know we're all excited to learn, but we need to stay on topic. Okay. So let's go ahead and jump in. So we've learned, of course, there are ways to go ahead and secure a switch, right? We can use simple passwords. We can use external servers, a whole bunch of things. So let's go ahead and cover a few of those things. First, let's go ahead and cover securing user mode with privilege, securing user mode and privilege mode using simple passwords, right? So let's say I work for DeMarco and I work for an ISP, right? And what we want to do, right, is we want to go ahead and secure the we want us to go ahead and secure the whenever somebody logs in, whenever somebody's trying to get to privilege mode, right? Let's say we have a knock that works under DeMarco being our lead, and he wants all of us to share a password, right? We're not worrying about security right now. We're just worried about access right now. Okay. So how do we configure that? First, we need to go ahead and go to global configuration mode, right? And then, you know, whenever we want to make a specific change to, right, a process or a right, or something within the configuration. Let's say it be spanning tree. Let's say it be dynamic routing protocol. It's all about context, right? And we currently we're not in the mode to change the context of spanning tree or dynamic routing protocols, right? We're in global configuration mode. So we need to get into the context to the point to where it'll affect us logging into the network device, right? And also getting into privilege mode. We can do that first, right? And we'll do one by one. First, we can do that by attacking whenever somebody is consoling into the network device. And when I say console, to be clear, it means that a IT staff person, right, would go ahead and get their rollover cable, right? Sorry, I'm old school, guys, or their console cable to go ahead and plug into the device to go ahead and access the device and input some commands via terminal emulation, right? So since we have that here already, we're going to go ahead and change those configuration for console mode. So we're going to change the context, go to line console. For Cisco, it will always be 0, right? So we'll go ahead and do line console 0, right? And first, we're going to tell the device, we're going to say, hey, prompt for login, right? Every time somebody gets into the switch. Okay? So if I use the help command, right? Because this is one of my favorite commands, right? Because you're always learning something new whenever you put in that question command. We want to change that setting. So I'm looking here for login, right? And the command login, right? The definition here by Cisco says enable password checking. It doesn't say enable username and password checking. It says enable password checking. And that's all that DeMarco wants us to do for now, right? So we're going to type in the command login, and that's all we want, right? For now, right? So now we get an error, right? Syslog tells us, hey, login disabled on line 0 until password is set, right? So I told you guys about the order of operations before, right? Within networking, also within cybersecurity that I'm still learning because I'm a student of the game, learning about cybersecurity as well, is that, there's things you can configure, you can set, but there is an order of operation for things. If you don't do it in that proper order, you can lock yourself out. You can have major effects to your network. You may have to shut down a network. You never want to do that, especially during production hours. So let's go ahead and first set that password, right? And we'll go ahead and make the password Yasin, since Yasin hasn't been here for a while. Sorry, buddy, got to pick on you. So we made the password Yasin, right? That's what everybody's going to use whenever we go ahead and log into our ISP router, right? So we have that set. Now we went ahead and fulfill the condition to put in that command for login, right? Excellent, right? So that works, right? So we're only changing console for now, right? We're not going to save our configuration, right? Because if we need to revert, right, we can either A, go ahead and get back into global configuration mode from privilege mode and make those configuration changes. Or if all else fails, whenever we try to test this, we can just go ahead and reboot the device. Okay? So let's go ahead and verify our change. Let's do a show run configuration. All right. Now let's look for this section. Right. There's an easier way to just look at the password, but I don't want to jump to that yet. We'll get to that once we get to book number 2. Okay. Right. So here's what we're looking for: our configuration changes. We went ahead and added a password called Yasin, right? And we told it, hey, whenever somebody is logging in via console into the device, ask for a password. Okay. All right. So let's try to test this out. Now with even G, it always going to go ahead and perform, right? Whenever you open up click on a device, you're basically consoling into the device. Let's see if I can go ahead and emulate that. So awesome. It looks like it let me do it. Right. So it's asking me just for a password. It's telling me, hey, user access verification. I'm getting the prompt, right? I'm getting the banner prompt, hey, unauthorized use, so we're good to go, right? Let's go ahead and put in that password that we set. I believe that password was Yasin. Awesome, and it worked, right? And I'm automatically, right, once I type in the command enable that you guys learned about before, I'm able to get the privilege mode. But we want to also secure privilege mode. That was one of DeMarco being in this scenario, being our architect, our tech lead. This is one of this is one of his requirements, is that we're going to work on security, right? And our cybersecurity director in this situation, Chris, right? Chris told DeMarco, hey, we need to go ahead and secure our network device. So we're going to go ahead and add in a password for all of our network administrators that will be logging into the device, right? And DeMarco in this scenario told us, hey, let's add an enable secret. And you guys learned through chapter 6 that adding in an enable secret um, protects the device, unauthorized users from getting into privilege mode. And of course, once they're in privilege mode, they're able to get into global configuration mode, and they can make adverse changes that we don't expect to our devices. So we want to go ahead and protect that as well. So let's go ahead and add that enable secret password, right? So to do that, right, I'm going to use my help command, one of my favorite commands, like I told you guys before, and we're going to change, right? We're going to modify the enable password, right? We're gonna go ahead and affect those parameters. So let's type in enable, right? Question mark, right? We're gonna go ahead and add, right, that password. We're gonna go ahead and use secret, right? Um, right? We're going to go ahead and use secret. I do not know the difference off the top of my head for using password or secret. I believe in the 9Ks. I just logged into the 9K, probably a week or two ago. I can't remember when I did get ready for this 9K to go into deployment. If there was a difference between password and secret, I think this is deprecated. Don't quote me. If you guys are interested, I can look this up, right? But we're going to use secret, right? And now, right, it's giving us different options, right? If we want to use an MD5 hash, which of course um, has now, you know, has long now can be, broken down and stuff like that. A PBKDF2, right? I just learned about that recently. We can use that hash as well. We can use a script hash. We can use all that. But we are going to use a clear text, right? Just for this lab, right? We'll talk about other security features in the future. We're going to use unencrypted, all right? And I'm going to type in a password. We're going to make this password geared. Let's make this password geared, right? So our enable secret is geared, okay? Right? Let's go ahead and confirm our password, right? Because I always trust that I did the right thing, but we're going to verify, okay? I think the enable secret is more close to the top. There we go. So we have it here. Okay. Right. It gave us a little bit of hash, so we're good to go. Right. So let's go ahead and test this out. All right. So as expected, ask me for that password. Let's type in Yasin. Awesome. Right. So now let me go ahead and try to get to privilege mode. Awesome. Right. So now it's asking me for that enable secret. Right. So we have um, 2 layers of of security right here. I'm sorry, 2 layers of passwords that an admin or an authorized user would have to remember to go ahead and get into our device. And that, my friend, that is an example of securing user mode and privilege mode with simple passwords. Okay. All right, let's keep going. Any questions so far?
No
Okay.
questions.
Okay.
No, it's clear.
Okay, okay. And just to expound, I want to bring my book over here. Just to expound on what I was telling you guys, okay, is that remember the checklist within each chapter, whenever explaining you the theory, and it shows you guys how to configure it. It is showing you the order of operations that you guys have to follow to configure something. You guys saw my mistake, right? When I went ahead and put in login first, I went outside of the order of operations, right? So this is why it's very important to make sure you understand this config checklist is not here for no reason. The editors of this book understand and has worked on network devices from all vendors, right? But for Cisco, this is how you configure it. Okay. All right. Let's keep going. All right. And I showed you guys some of the verifications. Now let's talk about securing user mode access with local usernames and passwords. Okay. All right. So we went ahead and we added just a shared password, right? Right. In this scenario, Chris went ahead and brought us in for a city hall, right? And he noticed that we were using shared passwords. Well, Chris politely critiqued us and said, yep, same thing, Yasin. Yeah, you go out of order, you'll mess some things up. So yeah, I'm with you. And we'll talk more about that once we finish. But yeah, so Chris went ahead and ordered our team and said, hey, you guys are using a shared password, DeMarco, that's unsafe. Um, it's better to go ahead and give everybody their own login to log into the switch, right? Well, Chris gave DeMarco some solutions. DeMarco researched. He says, hey, we're going to go ahead and um, secure user mode access with local usernames and passwords. And we can absolutely configure that, right? So we're going to make a few changes. First things first, we need, right, to get to console mode, right? And you go ahead and change that. We can change the virtual terminal lines, but we're not going to focus on that right now. We're going to focus just right now on the console. The same rules apply, right? But we'll at the end of the lab, we'll go ahead and talk about virtual terminal lines because I need to show you guys the difference between transfer input, right? So we have already configured a password, right? Before we configure um, our network device to go ahead and be able to accept local usernames and passwords, we need to remove the shared password. Okay, so let's do a no password, right? All right, so we went ahead and did that. Let's go ahead and verify that that has been taken out, right? And that's no longer in the running configuration. Awesome, right? So we don't have that there. We still have login, right? And we need to make a modification there, right? So if we type in login, right, we want to force the switch, right? DeMarco wants to force the switch to check for local usernames and passwords, right? Me using the help command is telling me that, hey, if you type in the keyword local, it's going to go ahead and if you complete this command with login local, it is going to say, hey, whenever somebody tries to log in, do local password checking with username. It doesn't say that here, but yes, it is doing local um, local username and password pair um, lookup whenever somebody's trying to log in. Okay, so let's go ahead and add that command. Excellent. So we went ahead and added that. Now that we added it, and this is following the order of operations, we're still not done, right? We need to go ahead and add in, right, usernames and passwords. Now, per the config checklist, we were supposed to do the usernames first, right, and the password pairs, right? I wanted to show you guys this first, but the config checklist, step one, if you guys are following within the book, it says step one is to use the username, name, secret, password, global configuration command to add one or more username and password pairs on the local switch, right? We didn't get an error this time, right? But you can go ahead and configure the username and passwords after. The effects that you can have by doing it the way that I just did, right? If if I were to go ahead and for some reason not configure the username and password and I get booted out of the switch, now whenever I try to get into the switch, right, it's going to ask for username and password. I don't have none configured. And this is the mistake that I made right here. So this is why it's very important to take your time to go ahead and follow the order of operations. Even if you're right, even if you get on, Google, you use AI because AI is going to reference a lot of these articles and do a quick search. While I love AI, while I love these articles, you can make an absolute mistake because some of these some articles, these blogs, what have you, they will tell you outside of the order of operations. Okay. Skilled guys, skilled men and women, um, and they and them, gotta include them. But we all make mistakes, right? So make sure you are reading this book, you are pulling up packet tracer, maybe when you're at your local coffee shop, maybe you're sitting, you're sitting at home on Sunday afternoon, chilling with your kids and your family. Practice, go through the config checklist of the entire book and make sure you understand what the order of operations is. Okay? All right. So now that I went ahead and spoke on my, pedestal for a while, let's go ahead and get through this configuration. All right. So we went ahead and enabled local login check-in, right? We're going to go ahead and create a username and password pair, right? So we're going to create the username Chris, and we're going to create secret, right? And we're going to give Chris a password of Chris. Now, Chris being the cybersecurity director, he's probably going to cuss us out for making his password Chris locally, right? But this is just for the lab, just for the lab, okay? Um, so we made the password Chris, the username password Chris, right? We'll create another one, right? We'll make it DeMarco secret, DeMarco, right? We'll do another one, right? Username Daniel. Oops, spelled Daniel wrong. Sorry, Daniel. All right. Secret 0. Okay. All right. So we have that configured. Let's test it out. All right. We're gonna log in as Chris and put the password as Chris. All right, I'm in. Right. So I'm gonna type in, right, my enable secret. My enable secret is uh-oh, where are we at? Name is the best. Chris. Thank you, Chris. All right. And that enable secret was, we're going to go ahead and type that in. And what was it? There we go. This is what happens, guys. You configure so much things at one time and you forget it because you become an old man, right? Um, let's go to no password. There we go. And there we go. Good old Geary. All right. So our enable. There we go. Enable secret is Gary. There we go. All right. So we have it configured. We're logged in as Chris, and we are in the switch, right? If all else fails and I couldn't get in, I, of course, could have powered it down. But this is why, of course, you don't save your configuration until you verified everything, right? So we have everything configured. Remember, right? Key takeaways here is that you can go ahead and force your network device you can go ahead and secure user mode access with local usernames and passwords on top of the enable secret, right? Better way to go ahead and secure, right? Um, Guys, I wanted to do a practical of securing user mode access with external authentication servers. My Windows server within my EVNG was, not performing properly. I didn't want to, I didn't want to go ahead and give you guys a half done lab. So we will revisit this at the beginning of Thursday's session, and I'll have a lab ready. But we'll go ahead and go over that shortly. Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and move forward. Right. So the next topic, right, within the chapter we covered outside of external authentication servers is securing remote access with secure shell, right? So a couple of things we have to do to go ahead and prep for that configuration, right? And the config checklist goes over all of this, right? So first, we need to go ahead and configure the switch to generate a matched public and private key pair to use for encryption, right? So of course, it's using the concept of public key infrastructure, right? So first things first, right? Within the checklist, right? Within the book, it goes over, right? We need to make sure that a host name, right, is configured within global configuration mode, right? We do have a host name configured, so we are good. We need to go ahead and configure a domain name right after that, right? We don't have that configured, so let's go ahead and configure that, right? So we go ahead and we're going to do IP domain, right? IP domain name, right? And we're going to go ahead and configure that. And we will call this Mario and Luigi.com. Okay. All right. So we went ahead and configured, right? We went ahead and configured this. So now we went ahead and what we completed is we completed the network devices fully qualified domain name. Okay. So now that we configured that, which of course is a fully qualified domain name, is a requirement for public key infrastructure if you guys haven't already learned it. Once we have that, now we can go ahead and generate our public and private keys, right? To do that, right, we're going ahead, gonna go ahead and type the command crypto key generate RSA, right? And of course, it's going, what we're looking for here is the command modulus, right? It's going to provide us the number of modulus bits on the command line, right? We're going to go ahead and type modulus. All right. And then it's giving us the size of the key modulus, right? You guys will learn more about that in depth later. If you want to go deeper into learning about, creating public and private key pairs, and of course, generating keys or what have you, and the importance of it, please, there's awesome material on Cisco's website. And also, if you're learning about cybersecurity stuff like that, you can dig into that and the importance of the key size, key length, right? And the importance and how generating public and private keys work, right? So, but for now, we're just going to go ahead and follow the configuration guide. We're going to go ahead and make the largest size of the key, so 4096, right? Then we're going to go ahead and get this, we're going to get this, this prompt. The key modulus size is 4096 bits, generating 4096-bit RSA keys, right? So now it's generating our public and private keys, right? It's letting us know here, generating 4096-bit RSA keys. Keys will be non-exportable. Can't export the keys. Okay, so they will stay on this device. You guys have to remember that. That is a key part. Okay. Um, then we get the syslog message. Okay, elapsed time was 13 seconds. The keys are generated, and right, we get a little syslog message as well. Right, SSH 1.99 has been enabled. Right, we can leave it as is. Right. Typically within the newer switches, the Cisco 9Ks, SSH version 2 is already enabled by default, right? But since in our lab we're using old software, we need to go ahead and configure this by default. It is within step 2 within the config checklist. It is an optional setting by default to use the command IPSSH version 2. Okay, right? And by default, right, you doing that will go ahead and support both SSH version 1 and version 2, right? But if we put in this command, we are forcing the switch to only accept version 2 of Secure Shell. And that's exactly what we're going to do, okay? Awesome. All right. So once we configure that, we are going to go ahead and we're going to go ahead and configure the VTY lines, right? Because this is where it's going to affect that, right? VTY standing for virtual terminals, right? We have 16 virtual terminal lines available, right? 0 through 15, right? And we're going to go ahead and change that, right? So now what we're going to do, we're going to do the same thing that we did in console, right? We're going to tell the switch, hey, go ahead and check for local passwords, right? Local username and password pairs, right? Whenever somebody's trying to remote into the device using Secure Shell. Okay. Then we're going to go ahead and use the command transport input all, right? Again, we're not talking about security. Our focus is not security at this moment. You are just learning networking within this session, right? We would talk about security in the future, right? The goal is while you're configuring this to think about both at the same time, right? But for theory purposes, I just want you guys to understand the theory, right? So we're going to put in this command transport input all, right? Because what we want to do is to allow the VTY lines to accept both SSH and Telnet, right? For this lab. Okay. So once we do that, we need to go ahead and test it. Okay. Now let's go ahead and give that a shot. Let's go ahead and grab a PC. bring that PC out here. Okay. All right. You got a PC. All right. Let's go ahead and plug that PC in. Let's say we're all the way over here. And yeah, we're off gigabit 0/2, right? And let's go ahead and make, small network, right? Slash, two, right? Let's do the IP address 10.1.1.1, right? 55.55.0, right? By default on routers, right? Interfaces are disabled, right? Now it's up. Excellent, right? And remember our IP address, because this is what we're going to use to remote in to the device, right? So 10.1.1.1, right? And we need to give our PC an IP address within that subnet as well, right? Let's go ahead and do that, right? One thing I love about EVNG is it gives us basically Linux PCs to go ahead and work with some of these devices and emulate remote access, right? So first, let's go ahead and configure an IP address. So 10.1.1.50, right? Give it the subnet, right? It's going to be 24, and that next hop is going to be 10.1.1.1. Okay, now it's going to go ahead and do ARP. All right, we don't have a duplicate IP address anywhere within the subnet, right? So we can go ahead and remote in. But, I trust that I did my configuration great, but we're going to do some verification. First, we're going to do some verification on the network device. We're going to go back here, and we're going to go ahead and verify, right, that version 2 is configured for SSH on this device, right? Awesome, right? So version 2 is configured, right? We have our public and private key configured, right? Everything ran through. We are good to go, right? Let's see who's logged in now, right? Awesome. It's telling us no connections are currently, connected to the device, right? So let's go ahead and change that, right? So let's see how I can remote log in. Awesome. Yeah, it's been a while. All right, so I can remote log in, and excellent. So let's do our login, right? And let's type in my IP address 10.1.1.1, right? Okay, what do I have to do? What is it telling me? Because it's been a minute. Let me log in. I got you. Okay. Uh, should use 23, so it's telling me to tell me that. Yeah. Yep. Let's do that. Let's wait for that to error out. And that should fail. Let's wait for that to fail, guys. All right. Let's do that. Boom. And open it up. A new session. See what? Looks like that didn't. Looks like I bugged it out. All right, let's close it and open it back up. Awesome. Okay, great. Small little mistake on my end. Let's go ahead and try that again. All right, so 10.1.1.50, all right, /24. Let's do it 10.1.1.1. All right, it's going through ARP. Excellent. Awesome. Let's look through our help command again. All right, let's try this again. All right, so now we have that. And let's do 10.1.1.1. And let's do telnet. And let's see if that works. It should. Let's go ahead and pull up the switch while it's doing that. Old code. Let's go all the way to the bottom. Okay, nothing yet. Okay. See if it errors out. Let's give it some time. It should be working. I wonder why it's not working. That's weird. Okay, let's do this. Hold on. I know what we can do. Awesome. All right. So let's use the router, right? We use a good old jump method. All right. So we're going to use this router to SSH into the ISP device. In a normal scenario, the customer would not be SSH or using remote access to log in into the ISP's device. This is strictly for the lab guys. Okay. So let's go ahead and find that command. Command should be SSH. All right, we have it here. We also have access to Telnet as well, but we'll do SSH for now. All right, so we'll do SSH. Okay, right, and we got plenty of options here, right? We're gonna go ahead and log in with a username, right? So type L, right, and I'm gonna type Chris, right, and we're gonna type in the IP address. So 10. Oops. For this subnet, 10.2.4.6.1. Okay, and let's see if that works. There we go. All right, so it's asking us for that shared password, right? So we configured something wrong, right? So let's go back to our configuration and let's see what we did change. Let's do a show run. Okay. It's asking for that shared password. Hmm. And actually, that was correct, right? Because we typed in our username, right? So it's just asking us to confirm that password, right? Which is Chris's password. So we actually did it right, right? It's terrible to second guess yourself, guys. So let's do this again, right? So we're gonna go ahead and SSH, all right? We're gonna get prompted, as you guys saw. Boom. It's access for the password of the username, Chris, that we provided. We can type in Chris. Excellent. All right. Let's go ahead and test getting to privilege mode. All right. And of course, our enable secret being Gary. Excellent. Now we have access. Awesome. Any questions, guys? Everybody's all good?
Yep,
Yep,
for
I'm good,
me.
Dave.
Okay, awesome, awesome. Next section is talking about enabling and securing web UI. Um, I want to go over that on Thursday as well because I want to make sure it works and I want to bring in some of my bring in my Windows Server VM so we can go ahead and test that, right? We went ahead and went over couple of other things. I'm just going through my checklist. Um, Configuring IPv4 on the switch. We will go over that on Thursday as well because we can use that for external authentication. Okay, go over that. We'll go over that. We'll go over that. Awesome. We'll go over that. Okay, excellent. Guys, we're at the top of the hour. We will save this lab and we will continue on Thursday. Okay. Remember to do your chapter review, look over chapter 6 again, and I will see you guys for the chapter 6 lab on Thursday.
I appreciate it, Dave.
All right, guys. You have a great day.
Uh, uh,